We see that in verse number 12. It says, to deliver thee. Wisdom delivers. It's like a midwife delivering a baby. And delivering a baby originally meant that the mother was delivered or she was freed from the pregnancy. Not like the UPS guy bringing a package, the delivery guy. In a medical context, delivering a baby wasn't like transporting a package from UPS to cross town to your house. It meant that the baby was released. The baby was liberated from the womb. And the baby needed to be released and liberated from the womb because if it wasn't, it would become dangerous for both the mom and the baby. So that baby can't stay in that womb. It's only for a time. It has to be delivered. There needs to be safe passage. And so you would have a midwife there to facilitate that. And so is wisdom working in our life. We don't want to stay in a spot that's going to hurt us or harm us. We want to be released from that. And we see in verse number 12, there's some things we need to be delivered from. It says, from the way of the evil man. It's not going to just teach us wisdom principles. It's designed to help deliver us. We are not Israel, so we're not the Israelites in bondage under Pharaoh, but we can look back and see that God delivered them. And we're not Daniel in a den of lions, but we can look back and read about how God delivered Daniel from that den of lions. And we're not one of the Hebrew boys that are in that fiery furnace, but we can look back and in all those circumstances we can see it's the same God who delivered them has some wisdom for us that can deliver us out of evil men. And we talked about this earlier today. They want to get their hands mainly on our kids because that's the next generation. And if they can get the next generation, they've got some followers. Everybody wants followers. And so don't think for a minute that the devil is not working overtime to try to get you to switch teams. Because that's what it's about. And if you're saved, he knows he's defeated, but in the meantime, he's going to try to get you to live carnally so as not to pull anyone else to Team Jesus. And in verse number 12, it goes on to say, from the man that speaketh froward things. We need deliverance from twisted talk. Froward is twisted or crooked talk. And evil begins in the mouth before it gets to the hands. There's a process. Evil communications corrupt good manners. You see the mouth and then the manners. There's some speaking. Evil speech typically precedes evil conduct, evil ways, evil manners. Mouth to hands is a process. And so Proverbs 2 verse 12 warns us of that. Look at that. Froward things. There's a lot of twisted things out there. There's a lot of perverted things out there. And there's a lot of crooked things. You just take what's straight and you make it crooked. That's what we need to be delivered from. And you take what's right and you just flip it on its head, and this is what Proverbs 12 is reminding us. Verse number 12. We need to be delivered from the man that speaketh froward things. And when we see the way of the evil man, look, this is a system, this is a lifestyle, this is a culture. It's not necessarily the idea, well, you got an individual act here and an individual act there. These evil men have a whole philosophy behind what they do. And unfortunately, 95%, well, I don't know if that's true because statistics, you can't trust the statistics. So I'll say it in a more general way. A high percentage of people who are probably genuinely saved and their soul is going to be with the Lord when they die, have allowed these evil men with their evil ways and their evil culture into their living room, through a television, into their office, through an internet connection on a computer, into their social media accounts, into their ears through the radio and the podcasts that they listen to. When you have a positive portrayal of witchcraft, sorcery, and the occult, that's a problem. When you have a humanistic gospel that says, follow your heart, be true to yourself, and you have moral relativism that's talking about how you can just determine right or wrong and good and evil based on how you feel. God's truth doesn't care about our feelings. He's true. When you have New Age concepts being promoted, when you have frequent themes of rebellion against parental authority, when you just have authority itself as a problem and where it's made fun of, when you have the traditional family structure, when it's either completely absent or it's just questioned constantly, and when you have more and more things being replaced with an LGBTQ philosophy and relationships and characters, and do we see that's a problem? Where do you get that? I'm just telling you, moms and dads, you get that from Disney. And you wouldn't think that could be so. Disney's philosophy is the same as all the other philosophies. Everything I just listed there, most Christian parents put their kids in front of that to watch it, to listen to it, to be absorbed in it, to read their books, to support their agenda. I don't believe in humanism, so I'm not going to support that. I don't want my children to be dripped upon with all of that. Well, we just enjoy that selectively. We'll just hit unselect and delete on all of it. It's just entertainment. It's just entertainment. It's not really a religious... Our kids aren't really getting religious instruction. We need to think again, because they are getting religious instruction. And it is rooted in, we're just going to have fun with everybody. And the kids will win them over, will win their hearts over with fun. We got to be careful of those things. Froward speech. Look at Isaiah 5. Isaiah 5. To deliver thee from the way of the evil man and from the man that speaketh froward things. With that thought, let's look at Isaiah chapter 5. And this verse is number 20. The Bible says in Isaiah 5:20, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, and put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. It's easy. Evil men with evil ways, with froward speech, they want sin to sound just sophisticated. And so it's double talk. We know we're not supposed to rebel, but if we can make rebellion reasonable, okay, we can do it. We got a justification for it. We know darkness isn't good as Christians, but if we can somehow take darkness and make it desirable, now all of a sudden we can gain some traction. Also, Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20, you can do good and somebody will assume evil. It's a flip of the narrative. You can stand for truth, you can preach light, and someone can flip that script on you and say, well, you're dark. The world does it really good. They take the values that we stand for, and they're going to flip the script. And your heart can be sweet. Somebody can convince you that you're bitter. They flip the narrative. What does the world call that? They make you think like you're nuts. It's gaslighting, right? Isn't that what the world calls gaslighting? You're fine. Well, they write a book or a movie on that or something, and the world kind of coined that term. That's what the world calls it. The Bible calls it out here in Isaiah chapter 5. You flip the narrative. The world wants to make you think that you're crazy. But you're not. But you're not. Go to Psalms 12. Verse number 2. Psalms 12, verse 2. Bible says, Psalms 12, 2, they speak vanity, every one with his neighbor. It's speech. With flattering lips, that's speech. With a double heart do they speak. Man, how does your heart speak? You got a double heart. You got two hearts. One is sincere, but it's divided in its intentions. You got one intention with your lips, and then you have another intention with your heart. And so God says it's like double talk. You got a double heart. What does that mean? Look at that. With flattering lips, your lips can say one thing, and with a double heart do they speak. In other words, the heart and the lips aren't matching. The speech and the heart isn't matching. You're saying one thing to woo somebody over, but inside you got a lot of bitterness and you got a lot of malice against them. And we don't want that. How should we speak? We should speak with integrity and with honesty all the time. Our lips and our hearts should be one, because we're Christians. You need to say, man, that guy stabbed me in the back. Man, that gal stabbed me in the back. What are they feeling? Betrayal. And that's a horrible thing. The serpent twisted God's word in the garden by changing what God said. It's the same thing now. Words can be used to twist, and speech can be froward. It can be twisted. It can be crooked. God help us not to be like that. Go to Proverbs. Let's go to chapter 6. Keep your finger in chapter 2, but we'll look at chapter 6 before we return there. Proverbs chapter number 6, look at verse 12. A naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. That's a hard sentence. Your mouth is froward. There's people, they just refuse to comply with what is reasonable. And it's why Proverbs 2 verse 12 says, to deliver thee from the man that speaketh froward things. Let's keep reading. He winketh with his eyes. He speaketh with his feet. You got a toddler? I'm not going after any wives. I'm not. All I'm saying is, I know my wife's footsteps. Yeah. If she walks a certain way, I know exactly what that is. Help me. Our kids are not allowed to walk. If they get disciplined, they are not allowed to walk up to they are not allowed. There's never been an allowance for this to happen up our stairs. Okay, just kind of come on down again. We're going to do that over. You can be upset. You can disagree. You have an allowance for that. It's okay for your emotions to be fired up because you got disciplined. There's an allowance for that. You can have that. You can be upset with Dad. That's fine. You can disagree. I'm okay. What there isn't an allowance for is you speaking to me in rebellion with your feet up the stairs. So you're going to kindly walk up the stairs again, and we might have to do that 3 or 4 times. But we're going to get that right. We're going to get that right. That's how your feet speak. He teacheth with his fingers. You know, these sermons, Baptist preachers from yesteryear, it's that Baptist finger coming down on you, And they say you're not supposed to point, Will. They say you're supposed to, this is a lot more, this presents better rather than that. But look, the fingers, we were doing something on shamefacedness a while back in Sunday school, and Miss Caroline pointed out to Cheyenne and I totally never, this had lost my memory until Miss Caroline said it, because my mother used to do the same thing that Caroline would do, but you remember that? Any of your moms used to do that? My mom used to do that all the time. Shame on you. She's speaking with her finger, with her fingers. It's a powerful verse. Look at verse 14, Proverbs 6. Frowardness is in his heart. He deviseth mischief continually. He soweth discord. And sowing discord is not a good thing. And you can't ever get out of it, man. Once that thing's sown, forget it. Once you sow the seed in the field, it's there. The mess has been done. There's no fixing it. It's just letting the Lord work it out and having something else come and overgrow it. I don't know. But once discord's sown, I don't have any answers. All I know is God says, don't do it. I'll tell you, our speech, James talks about our tongue as a fire, a world of iniquity. So before you talk, think. I tell one of my kids, I got 4 of them, so you won't figure out which one I'm talking about. But I tell one of them, I said, look, you better control that thing right there in your mouth. Because you keep talking, the solution to a lot of your problems is going to be just stop talking. Now that'll help all of us. What do I do in this situation? How about we don't talk? That'll help us. Now we've done enough messages where, okay, silence isn't always golden. We understand that, right? You got to know when to be silent, when to speak. But a lot of problems are just created because people just won't zip it. And it's a good place to go. If you're mad at your boss, it's a good time to ask for a lunch break. Okay, because you don't want to say something that's going to come back and bite you and you're going to regret. But Jesus said, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So we need to be mindful of those things. All right, back to Proverbs 2. We'll look at verse 13. The Bible says, who leave the paths of uprightness. That's apostasy in action, essentially. They leave a good path to walk in the ways of darkness. They knew the right path, and they deliberately made a decision to leave it. It's not good. That's the tragedy of the backslider, is that they didn't stumble into darkness. That's not a backslider. The tragedy of the backslider is this wisdom principle. They left. It's apostasy in action. They start with leaving the paths, and then they're actively, what do they do in verse 13? Who leave the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness. They have replaced the good with the bad. The principle of replacement works for good and it can work for evil. I don't want to be in church anymore. Well, you're not just going to sit at home and twiddle your thumbs. You're going to end up going to the bar or the club or the New Age thing or whatever. You're going to do something. If you want to get rid of the good path, you're going to end up with another path. Nobody lives in a vacuum. You do have to pick a team. You got to pick a side. You got to pick a path. And notice also in verse number 13, paths, plural. I know we live on the straight and narrow road. I know that's salvation. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of good paths. There's the witnessing path. There's the praying path. There's the singing path. There's the fellowship path. There's the giving good counsel path. There's the preaching path. There's the teaching path. There's a lot of good, upright paths. Don't leave your path. If it's good, if it's right, don't leave that path. He's like, man, stay out of that brother's lane. If that's his lane. Now, sometimes there's a 2-lane highway, and that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes there's a 6-lane highway. I mean, it's great to have 6 men that can teach. But if you got 6 men and only one of them can teach, don't try to take the other 5 and put them on a path that God doesn't want them on. They're all good paths. There's a lot of good paths. And also there's a plural in the ways, to walk in the ways of darkness. That's also plural, because there's a lot of dark ways. I'll tell you what the preacher's cry is. When people have light, they have truth, and they just leave that path and they actively look for darkness. Paul's heart was broken. You know why Demas forsook him? You remember that? Because he loved what? This present world. That's somebody who was really, really close to Paul. He said, man, I'd be a better Christian if I was just real, real close to Paul. Demas wasn't. His heart was in love with the world. God help us. God help us. Look at verse number 14 in Proverbs 2. The Bible says, who rejoice to do evil and delight in the frowardness of the wicked. Young people, this is the celebration of sin, which you should never celebrate. Who rejoice to do evil and delight. They're moving beyond doing. You might do something wrong tomorrow, but the next day when you do something wrong and now you're excited and rejoicing and delighting in it, man, that's a problem. We all do wrong. We all make mistakes. We all sin. I'll tell you, it's a big move to now start rejoicing and celebrating in that sin. We should be what? Dying to self. We should be repenting. We should be confessing our faults one to another. But God help us, those are worship words. Delighting, rejoicing, that's what we do with the Lord. That's worship language. I hope we don't worship our wrongdoing. It's an awful, awful thing. Look at Romans 1. We see this in the New Testament clear in Romans. Keep your finger in Proverbs 2, but let's get Romans chapter number 1. Look at the last verse. Romans chapter 1, the last verse of that chapter. And the whole chapter gives us the absolute depth of the depravity of man. And watch this last verse. Who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. This whole picture of man as a sinner before God, totally depraved. And it sums up the chapter by saying, the people that do it along with them, they love them. They rejoice in that. You can make evil your God. And you can make wickedness and sin your own little worship service. And that's an awful place to be. People find fellowship in doing wrong together. My mother used to say this phrase, birds of a feather flock together. It's communal worship around wickedness and around evil. And if someone enjoys living like the devil, they are going to enjoy having others around them who like living like the devil. They're going to encourage each other. And when you get saved, one of two things is going to happen. Your friends are either going to get saved, or I'm a Bible-believing preacher. The world and the news media thinks I'm public enemy number one and I'm just a mean man, a mean guy. And you're a born-again, Bible-believing Christian. And the public education system thinks you're a problem because you believe in a traditional family. Like you're what's wrong with our nation. You're public enemy number one. We're the ones who believe in separation. Be separate from the world. Be not unequally yoked. We talked about some of this in Sunday school. We're the loonies that believe that. Yet when you get saved, your lost friends typically separate from you. I thought you guys didn't have a position on separation. But they'll get rid of you. Because birds of a feather do flock together. If you're going down this path, if you switch sides, they're either going to come with you or they're going to continue to go down that path. And a lot of times they just say, hey, if I'm ever interested in that stuff, I'll let you know. It's good to go out as friends. Or you can never really talk to them about Jesus. Just talk to them about homemaking. Just talk to them about medical. Just talk to them about construction. Just talk to them about chickens. Just talk to them about engineering. Just talk to them about AI. Just talk to them about, business and used cars. And just talk to them about all the secular stuff. You won't have a problem. You just might want to leave that Jesus stuff out. Now, it's good to have friends of the world. The Bible says to do that. Because you don't want to lose an opportunity to witness to them. But I'm afraid there's too many Christians that aren't looking for that opportunity. You better look for that opportunity and be ready when they start looking down your path. But make no mistake, there are two ways, and people are going to fellowship. And I don't want to commune with the devil's crowd and celebrate around sin. Let me tell you something. There's a difference. There's a difference between friendship, fellowship, and ministry. You should be friends with the mammon of this world. You should be friends with the world. I want my lost neighbor to know I'm the best neighbor he can ever have. If they need eggs, we're going to bring them eggs. If we make cookies, we're going to bring them cookies. If they need help in their yard, we're going to help them in their yard. But I can't fellowship around the things that they're doing. I can't get involved in the sins that they're doing. I don't find communal worship around sin and wickedness something that appeals to me. I don't want it to appeal to me. So I can't have that deep fellowship. But if you can't fellowship, you can still have a friend that you can minister to. And you can minister in a whole lots of ways. Because if you want to win them over to your path, look, it's all right to have neighbors who are lost and don't want to hear the gospel from you, but you can be a great neighbor. You can fix their fence and not have to talk to them about Jesus. You've already been there. You've already done that. They don't want to hear it. But you can be a friend to them. They know you're a Christian. Don't think I'm saying don't witness to them. I'm not saying that. But if they're going to toast to their addiction every Friday night, and they're going to brag about all the wickedness that they live for, you might be the only stable person in their life. And God is not mocked. And what they sow and they're rejoicing, they're going to end up reaping. They're going to reap and weeping is what's going to happen. All right, one more verse and we'll be done. Go to Proverbs 2. One more verse and we'll be done. Look at verse 15. The Bible says, whose ways are crooked and they froward in their paths. This is a picture of total moral corruption. And you see these two phrases, you see whose ways, that's a general direction, whose ways are crooked. And now look at the end, it says, and they froward in their paths. Their paths are their specific steps, and it's all corrupt. Crooked is twisted, distorted, morally corrupt. Nothing about them is straight. They don't like the term straight gate. They're froward, they turn aside, they're devious, they're consistent in one thing, being inconsistent. A lot of people live like that. They're consistently inconsistent. God help us not to be that way. But look at this final description as we wrap up. We're going to look at one more passage and then be done. So get Philippians 2. I'll say a few more things in Proverbs 2, but let's get Philippians 2 so we can get there quickly. Before we keep your finger in Philippians 2, before we go there, let's do a brief review. Look at verse number 12 in Proverbs 2. To deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh froward things. It starts with their speech. Now, watch verse 13. Watch the progression. Who leave the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness. They abandon righteous paths for dark paths. By the way, that includes the dark arts, false religions, all lumped into the same thing. Verse number 14, watch the next progression. Who rejoice to do evil and delight in the frowardness of the wicked. They celebrate evil. It's just the world's sophisticated art of rebranding. Let's rethink this so we can really get them over to our evil ways of thinking so they can rejoice in it. I'm telling you, the game of self-justification is a tricky art of mental gymnastics, and this world wants to mess with your mind. But they celebrate evil, and then finally you end up, whose ways are crooked, and they froward in their paths. It's just an entire life that is just a maze of deception. Now, it's fun when you go to the amusement park and you send your kids through the maze and it takes them 5 minutes, 10 minutes to figure it out. But in the game of life, that ain't fun. But I'm telling you, wisdom delivers you from walking in those types of footsteps. God's ways, straight path, level highway. David, it's a way of peace. Now go to Philippians 2. Here's how we should live. Philippians 2, look at verse number 15. For us, it says, Philippians 2:15, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God without rebuke, in the midst of what? A crooked and perverse nation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. We should live our life so no one can lay blame on us. We should live a blameless life. So we travel home, and we do this quite often when you travel, or if you've traveled, some of you have traveled quite a lot. It's dark, and you need gas, or you need to use the restroom. You want to find either a Buc-ee's or a Love's because it's well lit, it's big, you just feel safe because they put so much money into it that it's just, the appearance that might be all right here. What you don't want is that little mini mart that's got, 3 gas tanks that look like they were made in 1975, and you need to use the bathroom and get gas, and the window's up all boarded up, and you're like, oh boy, well, I got to go, and there's nowhere else, and so you pull in, which is what we did last night, my son and I. And so we used the restroom. He wanted to get a snack, so I said, okay, my wallet's in the truck, let me go get it. So I leave my son in there. He's in the candy aisle. So my son's in the candy aisle, and I can see him as I walk out because I pull the truck and trailer up right in front of the glass thing there. And so I go get my wallet, and as I'm walking in, I see the guy behind the counter. I see him looking at my son the whole time. And when I walked in, I realized why he was looking at him. So when Josiah came out, I said, son, I'm going to give you a life tip. He said, what's that, Dad? I said, anytime you're in a candy store, in a mini mart, in the candy aisle late at night, never have your hands in your pockets. Now, my son's he's half tired. He's been kind of feeling under the weather. I made him work because men need to learn to work through stuff. So I thought it was a good dad opportunity, amen. So he just had his hands in his pocket. And so I said, son, I watched that guy eyeing you because areas like this, so you see how the window's boarded up? I said, they expect theft. So he goes, oh, Dad, I wouldn't think about stealing something. I know you weren't, but he's watching you to make sure you don't. So that was a good lesson for blameless. Look, I know you're not wanting to do wrong or even thinking that way, but I've got to get you wise according to this world so that you know what people are thinking. Because, look, if you're a Christian, you want to live a blameless life so no one could... Look, people are going to blame you. You have to purpose in your heart that I've got to live blameless because I know it's coming, but I certainly don't want to be accused of stealing because I have my hands in my pockets. It'd be an awful thing for the preacher and the preacher's kid to show up on the 10 o'clock news. Yeah. Really, we didn't do it. We just... Look, 1 Corinthians talks about Christ, the power of God, and the wisdom of God. The wisdom that delivers from evil men ultimately points to Jesus Christ, who is the wisdom of God. He delivered us from the evil one. He delivered us from this present evil world. And He delivered us from the power of darkness, Colossians 1. So don't walk with them who walk in darkness. Don't talk like those who speak froward things. And don't rejoice with those who celebrate evil. How do we do that? We get wisdom, we get knowledge, we get understanding, and we ask the Lord to deliver us. And He will. Wisdom works as a delivery tool. Let's pray.